Welcome to the state of Ohio. I'm Karen Kassler. It's the third week of the trial of Republican former Ohio House Speaker Larry Householder and former Ohio Republican Party Chair Matt Borges for racketeering conspiracy related to the law that bailed out FirstEnergy's nuclear power plants. There has yet to be 5 straight days of testimony, though. My Statehouse News Bureau colleague Andy Chow was at the federal courthouse in Cincinnati this week.
What's new this week?
So the trial once again had to take another break because another juror tested positive for COVID-19. But before then, we saw yet another full day of testimony from FBI Special Agent Blaine Wetzel. And at that point, he was going over a lot of the evidence that he obtained in his investigation of Matt Borges. Now, remember, Matt Borges, the former chair of the Ohio Republican Party, was working as a lobbyist and as a consultant for FirstEnergy, and he was one of the main players in the fight against the referendum attempt where people wanted to repeal the nuclear power plant bailout. Borges is accused of offering $15,000 to a consultant for that referendum campaign in exchange for information such as where petition gatherers were located and how many signatures were being collected. And what we were able to see was a lot of video and hear a lot of audio of that exchange. And we even see a meeting where Tyler Furman, the campaign consultant for the referendum effort, was offered $15,000 from Matt Borges, and prosecutors showed that check to corroborate their argument.
Also this week, there was some testimony on what Larry Householder allegedly did with the money that he allegedly received.
Yeah, so what we saw as everything wrapped up is this sort of tallying up of different personal benefits Larry Householder was able to receive through FirstEnergy via the alleged dark money groups. And what we saw were bank statements where Larry Householder was able to pay off his credit card debts because of payments through Generation Now, and pay off home renovation projects, pay off a lawsuit settlement, and also, according to the prosecution, become Speaker of the House, all because of FirstEnergy money. And that amounted to more than $500,000 for Larry Householder.
And one other thing you did a story about this week was about GPS devices. Tell me what you found out in the evidence that was presented this week about how those were potentially going to be used in this referendum effort.
Yeah, so going back to that 2019 referendum effort, what we knew then was that referendum campaigners and petitioners said that they were being followed. They didn't know how they were being followed, but they were being followed. And somehow these anti-referendum campaigners would show up in the same locations and stop the signature gatherers from getting the signatures that they needed. We learned through the prosecution's examination of the FBI, what we learned through that is that FirstEnergy paid for a private investigator to follow the petitioners around. And in the invoice, there was even a line that said GPS monitor and surveillance. Now, that line item was actually canceled out, and it said those GPS monitoring systems were never bought. But what we do know through the different evidence that was provided was that a private investigative firm was hired by FirstEnergy Associates, and FirstEnergy spent about $80,000 to have those petitioners followed. And I ended up talking to the spokesperson of that referendum campaign, and he called that thug tactics. And he said the evidence that's coming up in trial right now only confirms what they already knew, was that FirstEnergy wasn't playing fairly.